what is your viewpoint on government potentially, playing a more active role in at least the indigenous data and Indian origin data? Even if you look at just say YouTube or Twitter, huge number of Indians on this platform. They engage, they generate a lot of data signals, and then there's whole source of there is a lot of indigenous data in various archives and so on, and then proprietary data within various organization. Is it like too much to hope that somehow government should be able to bring all these actors together and make a kind of more central mandate to pool in all this data for the larger benefit of the country, and which can create also sustainable advantage for a company like yourself and anyone else building indigenous models, or is this too much of a naive thinking on my part?
That's a very important question. So Gen AI feeds on scale, right? I think that is, and there are different ways people can get to that scale. I think in China, maybe a government mandate achieves that scale, right? In US, it has been very large companies which have large surface areas that can create that scale for themselves. I think we should think of an alternative that India can show, right? And there is technical stuff here. There is ecosystem stuff here to be innovated on to make it happen, right? So I don't think it is naive, but I see two broad challenges, right? One is in India we are touchy about capitalism still. Okay? So you just use the word benefits to companies like you, and immediately there's a reaction that this is being done with a certain interest to create value pockets, right? I think the value pocket is for the country, and we do not recognize how much we are draining out as a country when there are so many creators building content that is feeding the next generation video generation model, etc. Right? We are just working to create that structure, and the value drain there is huge. But we have sort of like, as a country, firewalled that thought process that this is what it is. And if there is an Indian company doing something, we're very touchy about it. That's a separate point, but that's a cultural thing. But the second point I would still say is that the government is thinking right along these directions around both data and compute, but we are multiple magnitudes away from the reality. Right?
Yeah, I think this is you briefly alluded to that, but I want to just further emphasize. And I've kind of in my entrepreneur journey, I've seen it from the front lines. Let's say how dominant Google and Facebook are in India. Now we all know, like in China, the Google of China is Baidu, but Google of India is Google. Facebook of China is WeChat, Facebook of India is Facebook, and so on for every platform. So in the same around last 20 years, China has figured out a way to both collaborate with these companies, get them to invest huge amount of money, and yet protect domestic companies and create a level playing field. And today these companies are as competitive. Amazon of China is Alibaba, Amazon of India. Fortunately, you have Flipkart, which probably could have benefited from some protection, but at least they are there and still the largest player. But not too many examples, and as a result, all of us collectively are paying huge rent to these platforms today. If I start a company, I have no choice but to advertise on Facebook and Google. So me as an Indian company, to acquire Indian customer, I have to pay these international platform. Otherwise, I can't survive. And the risk in AI is even more pronounced if we get to like fast forward 5-6 years from now, and there is not a single use case which can work without leveraging some kind of inference engine. And if all of the inference engine are foreign owned, foreign controlled, we'll be in a pretty sticky wicket. And I think the only real moat I can see is the Indian origin data. And unless there is a strong effort, which is not driven by very parochial interest of who wins, who loses, but how does country win in this? Right? I think that's. I hope there is a lot more conversation about that, and I think it can create. I really believe it can create a huge leg up for Sarvam and other Indian LLM companies, and probably a topic that people should think very seriously about, irrespective of who wins and loses.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So my sense is that we as a country have always historically absorbed good things that have come from wherever, right? And I think these companies that we mentioned, they build good stuff, and I think we leverage it. But what we should also think about is our the word is, we don't want to decouple, right, from anybody. I think we are great users. We are great global citizens, right? But we should think about strategic autonomy. If you wanted to, can we build a search engine today? right? If we wanted to, can we build an LLM today? So I think that is something that we should build. And it's almost like saying, what is the R&D spend of the country? Because even if you didn't make money on it and you did these things to show that you have the capability, research would improve. There would be more feeling of confidence in the local companies to innovate, right? And this is a flywheel, right? So India can take a different approach, I feel, rather than the hard approach of China or just completely doing what we're doing now, where we say, just like Aadhaar, right? It's a great example. We said, okay, people said you can't build biometric for the country, and we built it, right? And we use components from elsewhere, we use GPUs, we use algorithms and so on, but we built it, right? I think that is useful and to do as a country, and especially in the current geopolitical scenario, when there is greater intent, greater interest to think about these things, we should have positive energy to do this, get more people back and build some of this. But as you said, there are structural things we should think about.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a very important point that, can we build a search engine today? I think 2 years ago, answer would have been absolute no chance. But search engine itself is getting disrupted with these, more intelligence-driven synthesized search. Like for most of youngsters, they don't go to Google anymore. They go to GPT, and GPT is able to give dramatically better answer than having to go through 20 documents and figuring out what's relevant. So maybe these questions are interlinked as we transition from the last era of internet, mobile phone type of compute and applications to LLM powered applications. It's a reset moment, and there is an opportunity for country to maybe think maybe now it becomes possible to dream. Look at example of Perplexity. They are giving Google pretty much pretty good run for their money because the search paradigm is very different when you look at from LLM first point of view. So maybe there are possibilities, but all of that require that India has indigenous models that we have full control on, and we can let all these other innovation and applications emerge.
At SparX, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to SparX on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.